So today, I'm going to talk about 10 movies that I liked so much that I went out and got the book. So stick around to see what they are on Rogers Reads. Well, hey friends, Roger here, and today I'm going to talk about 10 books that I read because of the film. Now, usually it's recommended that you see the book before you go see the film. But there have been movies that I have gone out to see, and afterwards I thought, I need to read the book for this as well. So this is my list of 10 books that I read because of the film. The first one on the list is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. So the story takes place on a train in which a murder victim is discovered with multiple stab wounds, and it's up to the brilliant detective Hercule Poirot to solve the crime. So the movie that I first saw was the one with David Suchet as Poirot, and I think there's been a few different iterations of this movie. Now, I did love the book once I finally got to read it. It was a lot of fun delving into Poirot's mind and witnessing his deduction and analysis processes, which just doesn't come across the same in the film. But on the other hand, David Suchet's portrayal as the fussy detective was classic, and I've watched that particular movie several times. And I still like it better than the 2017 version, which had quite a few more noticeable differences than the first film in the book. So the next book and film is The Godfather by Mario Puzo. So I loved this movie when it came out, which made me want to run out and read the book. So I actually went on to read the next 4 or 5 books in the series, though the first one was the best. So The Godfather follows a crime family, the Corleones, and their powerful legacy of tradition, of blood, and of honor. I thought that these books were such an interesting peek into this violent subculture, and the book went into much more detail than the movie, I thought. But still, it's that first movie that never left me, and I thought it was really, really powerful. I did enjoy the book, but nothing beats the movie. This particular movie, in my opinion anyway. So next up is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. So this one follows our main character who comes under the thrall of Tyler Durden, an enigmatic young man who holds a secret after-hours boxing matches in the basement of bars. So there, 2 men fight as long as they have to and form what is called the Fight Club. So Fight Club is kind of a social satire on the dehumanizing effects of consumerism, alienation brought on by chronic and obsessive materialism, overindulgence, and career and lifestyle obsessions, which are all fueled by advertising. So fighting bare knuckles in the streets is a way for our characters to feel alive in a somewhat dead and detached world. So I enjoyed both the book and the movie, and I think, if I remember correctly, that the film was pretty true to the book. Though there were some huge differences, such as how our main character met Tyler Durden. The ending was also different. The film, though not really surprising, had more of a Hollywood ending to it. If I remember correctly, the book kind of hinted that Tyler might return at some point, whereas I think that at least in my opinion, that the film kind of gave off an opposite vibe. But yeah, Fight Club. Next up is Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. So I loved the movie with Anthony Hopkins about a serial killer in prison who decides to offer his help to a young investigator trying to track down a killer on the loose. This was another one of those films that I ended up seeing several times. So after seeing the film, I picked up the book, though I wasn't aware at the time that it was actually the second book in this series. So I read this second book, Silence of the Lambs, and then I went on to read the first book, Red Dragon, as well. And then I ended up reading the next books, Hannibal and Hannibal Rising. But for me, I thought that the first 2 books were the best, but they didn't really have that same magic that I experienced when watching the film. I mean, hello, Anthony Hopkins. So the books are definitely worth a read because I remember I really enjoyed them. So number 5 is Trainspotting by Irvine Welsh. So I really enjoy Irvine Welsh's work. Now, Trainspotting is about drug addiction, junkies basically, with lots of sex, violence, cursing, and drug use. So if any of these things bother you, you probably want to stay far away from both the book and the movie. Now, the book, I feel, is a little more difficult to get into than the movie, as it is written in Scottish dialect, which was a bit of work to get into and get through initially, though you do get used to it after a while. I know I have an easier time listening and understanding the dialects than I do reading them on the page. Often when authors write in dialect format like this, it doesn't always work that well for me. Now, I did enjoy the book, but I have to say that I think I enjoyed the movie better. I remember feeling that the book was a tad disjointed compared to the film, but still worth a read, however. So it seems thus far that I've almost enjoyed the films more than the books. So this could be 1, because I saw the film first, or 2, because the films are actually better. Who's to say? So next up is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. So this is a story about a woman who marries a handsome-ish prince, and he turns out to be, well, let's just say that he turns out to be not quite the man of her dreams as she imagined. Okay, so this film is a classic, and I can't even tell you how many times I've seen it. So a couple of years ago, my book club read the book, and I ended up loving the book as well. Actually, we read the book and the movie back to back, and I had a discussion of both of them. Now, there were actually some things in the book that better explained certain scenes in the film, but for the most part, I thought that the adaptation was basically similar to the book. But to have to choose between them, not going to do it. They both are classics in their own right, I feel. And they both have my favorite line of all time. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. So what is my next book? It is Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx. So this is a heartbreaking story of 2 young men, Ennis and Jack, 2 ranch hands, where they're working at a camp one summer and their mutual attraction ends up turning into something deeper. So this is another movie that I really, really loved. So I picked up the book and I was pretty stunned by how short it was. If I recall, it was only like 55 pages or so. And yes, it was so short I ended up reading it in under an hour. And it definitely did not have the same impact on me as the film did. Because of its length, I thought that the book felt a tad rushed. Now, I did enjoy both of them, but I appreciate that the story was more fleshed out in the movie, a lot more detail. But I say that the book is still worth the read, and it's impressive how the author manages to cover a lot of story in so few pages, and I do recall that the prose was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I recommend reading the book and the movie if this sounds like the kind of story that you might be interested in. Next up is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. So this was one of those films that consistently played at the local theaters and art houses in my area, and I always enjoyed it when I went to see it, though it is a very disturbing movie. So it follows a 15-year-old boy named, what was his name? Was it Alex? I think it's Alex. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going to call him Alex. So a 15-year-old boy named Alex and his friends, who are all quite violent. So after a particularly heinous attack on someone, Alice ends up getting rehabilitated against his will. So this ended up being quite a powerful film with an interesting message about human freedom and about good versus evil. So anyway, one day I was browsing at the thrift store and there was the book, A Clockwork Orange, so I picked it up and read it. So though the film itself is quite disturbing and quite violent, I recall that the book struck me as being even more so, and there were quite graphic and lengthy descriptions of heinous crimes in the book. So with this one, I'm probably going to say that I liked the movie more. But again, that could just be because I saw it first. But it is a classic film for a reason. It's very well done. So we're all the way up to number 9. And this book/movie is The Witches by Ronald Dahl. So The Witches was a book that I read immediately after seeing the movie with Angelica Houston starring as the Grand High Witch. So I am a huge fan of Angelica Houston. So after I saw the movie, I wanted to read the book just to keep going. And the story was really interesting too. But of course, I love me a witchy story. So, if I recall, this was another instance where I enjoyed the movie a lot more than the book. I thought it went into a lot more depth, if my memory serves me. So the story follows a young boy who, after the tragic loss of his parents, goes to live with his beloved grandmother. He soon learns that witches do indeed exist and that their sole joy in life is to find ways to make children disappear, and preferably in the nastiest ways possible. So there's one major difference between the book and the film, if I recall, and that was that in the film, which had kind of a Hollywood ending, the boy ended up being transformed back into a child by a reformed witch. In the book, however, witches cannot be reformed. They exist to kill children. So I guess the change in the film was made to ensure that the movie was more palatable to general audiences. So yeah, the movie, excellent. And we move on to number 10, which is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. So this follows a young boy named Connor. Now every night he has the same dream ever since his mother took ill, ever since she started her treatments that don't really seem to be working. But tonight is different from those other nights because tonight when he wakes up, there's a visitor at his window. This visitor is an ancient force of nature that ends up developing quite an interesting relationship with the boy. So I really ended up enjoying this book. And this was the second book of Patrick Ness's books that I read. Now I don't recall a lot of differences between the book and the movie, though I don't think that Connor was quite as close to his mom in the book as he was portrayed in the film. But for the most part, the film was pretty true to the book. But I think I did like the book better. So that is the 10 books that I read because of the film. How about you? Are there any books that you read after seeing the movie or were motivated to read after seeing the film? If so, let me know in the comments. I'm always kind of curious about that. So that does it for this video. As always, I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support. And please, if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you click the like button below. And that about does it. I will talk to you in the next video. Roger and out.